Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Evertiro. All expenses paid vacation? Sure thing. Let's jump right in. Ages ago, I was the senior developer for a company that revitalized other companies. Think of it as a sort of mini Shark Tank. We would find small businesses that had a great idea but were struggling, and we'd help them achieve their goals in exchange for a cut. Sometimes this meant providing development or engineering talent to get a product off the ground. Sometimes it meant providing literal capital. Sometimes it meant providing staffing services. Support staff and experienced executives were commonplace needs. We were also a relatively small company, so it wasn't uncommon for our people to have multiple hats. There was one time when I was working as a development lead for one client while acting as interim CTO for another client. It could be a bit chaotic, but it paid pretty well, was a great experience in a wide variety of things I normally wouldn't have had, and was usually pretty fun. So one Friday afternoon, we get a call from a client who was particularly frustrating, a frequent flyer if you will. They seemed to make every 30-second fix into an insurmountable problem. I'm going to be intentionally vague about the specific industry the client was in. It's a tiny industry, anyone in their industry would be able to identify them just from the industry and city. This particular call comes in early in the afternoon. They recently moved things around, and now none of their printers work. Obviously, it's mission critical. We do some remote troubleshooting, but we can't even get a flicker of life from the device. We spend an hour or so trying to work through what happened before discovering that there's a really good reason it won't work. The cable didn't reach where they moved it to, so it wasn't actually plugged in. Well, that's about as stereotypical as an IT problem can get, right? Just plug it in and you'll be good to go. But management says that's not the solution they want. While it's totally possible to run a Cat5 line to the new location, they really want it wireless since that's the big thing these days. Okay, that's easy too. Most of our comparably sized clients had switched to wireless networking for parts of their offices, so we already had the right procedures in place, deployment scripts set up, etc. All they had to do was plug in the device, which could be very easily acquired at any electronics store, and we could remotely handle everything else in a matter of minutes. But nope, management dictates that we absolutely have to have a person on site in the morning to set it up for them. At this point, it's very late afternoon on a Friday, and everyone but me and my boss, the CEO, had gone home for the day. Boss isn't about to lose his weekend, and crap rolls downhill, so I drew the short straw. We reached out to the client to make sure that they knew what they were asking. They were in Chicago. We were several states away in the Midwest, nearing the end of the day on a Friday. If they wanted me to be there by morning, they'd have to pony up for whatever flight we could arrange at short notice. And there was only one flight that left that night going from our relatively small airport to Chicago, and the only seat available was in first class. Additionally, it would be taking off in just under 2 hours, meaning I wouldn't have time to get home and pack anything if I was going to make the flight. They reiterated that it was absolutely crucial that I be there in the morning, and they would happily pay for whatever flight was necessary. Additionally, I was told that they would have a room pre-booked at the Palmer House. They regularly used a room there for VIPs and such, and I could charge whatever I needed to the room. Further, they said that if I ended up needing to stay longer than a day, they'd reimburse me for any clothing or essentials I had to purchase since it was so incredibly last minute. Okay, I can live with that. I get to the airport 10 minutes before boarding, make it through the vacant airport, past the TSA checkpoint, and to my gate as they're closing the door. Literally the last person on the last flight of the day. I arrive in Chicago and shockingly, there is a company car. Effectively a limo, literal black car service before Uber was a thing, waiting for me. He takes me to the hotel as promised, hands me an envelope before pulling away from the curb. The envelope contains a prepaid debit card and a note saying it has $250 on it for incidentals, but please charge anything I can to the room. Sweet. Was expecting it to be a long weekend in grungy clothes, check in, and went to bed. The next morning I show up at their office bright and early. I sit around for half of the morning before anyone shows up to let me in. They then show me the new printer area, which is, as expected, well outside the area of the office which was originally wired for networking, in what was once a break area. I go, yep, that's not gonna work with your old wired hub. Run across the street, literally, door to door was one street apart, to the closest electronics store, pick up their shiny new wireless router, run back to their office, plug it in, then get on the closest computer, run through the 30-second setup, run the script that updates the configs for their quirky, antiquated software so it picks up the new printers in the office, and tell the owner that it's all set up. He gets this sort of confused look on his face and says, "Already?" I respond by pointing out that we did tell them in advance that we could do it remotely if they were willing to actually plug the device in for us, and he finally realizes how silly the call out was. But now, he feels obligated to save face. I'm instructed that I'm to remain in Chicago until the close of business Monday to ensure there are no issues with the new hardware under actual use. Obviously, it'd be fiscally irresponsible to fly me out twice in a week. I asked for clarification. They're instructing me to stay checked into the fairly expensive hotel and keep billing things to my room through Monday night? Yes. What am I supposed to do with the rest of the weekend? Is there anything else at their local office that I can fix while I'm here? No? Go eat a hot dog and play tourist? Just keep my phone handy and make sure I show up at the opening time on Monday? Okay, can do. I go back across the street, pick up a charger for my phone, find a nearby department store and pick up a few changes of cheap clothes, stop by the hotel to drop off my purchases, and spend the rest of the weekend playing tourist. Okay, I did a tiny bit of sightseeing and spent most of the time catching up on sleep, but I did ensure to avail myself of room service for every single meal at their expense, before showing up bright and early Monday morning. I sat in their office for the majority of the workday before the owner came and found me to give me the travel details for my return flight. He even suggested that I'd done a great job. Really? I didn't do anything but plug a device in, and should get a drink before heading to the airport and bill it to the room. As suggested, I went back to the hotel, packed my stuff in my laptop bag, stopped in at the bar for a drink, who knew hotels had $100 plus drinks, and headed to the airport. All told, they shelled out about $1,000 just for the room, probably 2/3 of that in room service fees, several hundred in transportation to and from the airport, not to mention the flights because they didn't want to walk across the street, pick up the easily obtainable piece of hardware, and plug it in. I got a 3.5-day vacation with first class travel, one way anyway, halfway across the country for doing just that. Gee, nope, can't see at all why these people needed help with their business and why you guys were part of this in the first place. The business practices that these guys had were pretty crap. OP did mention in a comment down below, it says, "Unfortunately for me, the client went under about 8 months later. We started to see red flags that their business practices included some less than legal things and pulled out. About a month after we dropped them, they were shut down. I didn't follow the case beyond that point, but I have a little doubt the owner spent some time behind bars." Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Chicken Man Sam. Hospice nurse demands I bring exactly what she ordered. Let's jump right in. As a warning, this post does involve a person who is on hospice care. The malicious compliance, however, did not in any way pose a threat to the patient, as I had planned for that. My job is a bit strange. I work for a company that provides equipment, beds, oxygen, wheelchairs, etc. to patients on hospice care. This can be one of two ways: one, in-home with family, or two, in an assisted living facility. This story involves the latter. I got an order today for an emergency O2 setup. This normally includes an O2 concentrator, think specialized air compressor, a couple of backup tanks, a tank cart and pouch, and all of the tubes and equipment for those. I immediately noticed that this order is odd. First, on the order are two of our biggest O2 tanks outside of liquid O2, M60 for those in the medical and gas field. These are large 24-pound tanks of O2 that are reserved usually for high-liter flow patients or those who live in excess of 2 hours from their nearest warehouse. While this on its own isn't odd, the fact that it was relatively close to my warehouse and the concentrator was only a 5-liter one had me questioning. On top of that, the order also had one of our smallest tanks, B-Tank, which are the kind you usually see people carrying in pouches while out walking. Third, there was a tank cart for a third the size of the tank, E-Tank, that is our standard but wasn't on this order. And finally, to top it all off, there were no regulators, which are devices that are needed to extract the O2 from the tanks in a controlled manner, and given the order, there should have been 2 different kinds, as M60s take a different regulator than E or B. Obviously, this order was wrong, and I wanted to make sure I was providing the correct equipment. I figured either the hospice company had a non-nurse input orders, pretty common, which resulted in accidentally getting M60 instead of E-Tanks. A standard O2 setup for our company is 2 E-Tanks and 1 B-Tank, with each concentrator in case of emergency or travel, or they had forgotten to add the regulators and just added the cart out of reflex. I decided to call the hospice nurse, whose number was in the patient notes, and clarify what equipment was needed. "Hi, this is OP with Health Company. I'm calling in regards to your order for patient." "Yes," with the nastiest tone you can imagine. Telling myself she's already had a stressful day, as healthcare is brutal. I have a few questions regarding the equipment ordered. Some of the equipment is incompatible and or missing. "I know what I ordered. Just hurry up and bring it. Can't you see it's a stat order?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm just trying to ensure that we're providing the correct equipment for the patient. Some of this equipment doesn't seem needed, and others are missing key parts." "I'm a nurse, and you're just an effing delivery driver. You don't know what you're talking about. Do not question my decisions, and just bring what I effing ordered now." "Right away, ma'am. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Now, I may not be a nurse, but I've been doing this for a while. So I go ahead and load up the order, but I also load the regulators that might be needed, as well as the standard O2 tanks just in case. While I was down to maliciously comply, I didn't want to endanger a patient. I figured I'd let the facility staff know, give them the extra equipment, and let the hospice nurse suffer when the facility reported on her incompetence. I get there and screen into the facility where I'm directed to the nurse's station for the patient's unit. I have all the equipment ordered by Nurse Karen on a cart, and I'm going to give her one more chance. When I get to the nurse's station, the facility nurses point me in the direction of the hospice nurse. I stop to talk to her, trying to show her the issue. She immediately shuts me down again and tells me to just do your effing job. She then tells me the room number and walks off. I get to the room and am surprised to see the regional supervisor for the hospice company, who I had met a few times before, as she liked to greet all the new patients when she was in the area. We got to talking, and this is how it went. "Hey OP, are you here to get the patient set up?" "Yep, although there might be an issue with the order." I then wheel in the cart. "Why do you have those tanks? The patient is on 2 liters, they don't need that." I figured it was a mix-up and tried calling Nurse Karen to confirm, but she rudely insisted that I bring this out exactly as she ordered it. She also didn't order any regulators. What? What if the facility loses power or the concentrator goes down? I tried explaining, but she just insisted to bring this. "Don't worry though, I've got extras in my truck. Do you want the normal O2 setup?" "Yes, thank you. I'll be sure to look into Nurse Karen's conduct." I did my order, chatted with the facility staff, and left. Didn't see Nurse Karen or Awesome Manager again. I thought that was the end. But it turns out that Awesome Manager called my boss while I was out doing the rest of my orders. Apparently, he wanted to thank me for knowing what I'm doing and letting him know. They started looking into Nurse Karen's other patients and found that she was constantly ordering incorrect equipment, and the other techs were just quietly correcting it for her. Easier than calling, honestly, and what I would have done if my day hadn't been so light. Awesome Manager told my boss that he had let Nurse Karen go and that she would no longer be an issue. Apparently, I had saved the hospice company thousands of dollars in potential malpractice and neglect lawsuits. The nurse in this story reminds me of the one from the lifeguard story we did a couple days ago, where they were going to become a nurse but they were the most entitled person ever. Makes me wonder if they were related. I tip my hat to OP though, because they know their job and they were just looking out for the patient regardless of what the nurse told them to do. Epic. Our next story today comes to us from Sabra 2001. "You want me to waste company money schmoozing the wrong guys? Okay, let's jump right in. A number of years ago, I worked for a recruiting company that serviced a major automotive plant in the US. This was the first of its kind built in the US and had just recently opened. Now, typically for my company, a business manager, owner, administrator would give us hiring orders for new employees. Usually, it's someone in charge who decides to hire new people. With this company, the administration handed the hiring decision to the new hire trainers, then those trainers would give us the order. I loved these trainers. They were deeply religious, family-oriented guys. Both of them adopted children from rough homes while I knew them. Both were extremely kind and welcoming to my new hires I was sending in, which can be rare in an automotive plant. They'd go on missions with their church to help in struggling areas. While I am not religious at all myself, I loved how passionate these guys were and how it reflected in working alongside them. The plant lowered production and our orders for new hires slowed. My managers started getting on my butt. Hey, go ask Bill and Ted if there's any new hires they need. Take them to dinner and see if you can talk them into more employees. I explained repeatedly to my boss that Bill and Ted do not make hiring decisions. Those decisions come from way over their head, and they just relay it. I was told I am new to this business and don't understand how networking works. Finally, my boss's boss got on my butt when he was in the region for a meeting. I needed to push these guys to make new orders. So I checked my limits for how much I could spend schmoozing clients, and then I took these guys all around town for months. A new steakhouse opened you guys want to try? Bring your wives and let's go. Do you guys want to hit the billiards club for lunch? The whole ticket is on me. Office wants breakfast burritos and coffee delivered? Send your orders in and I'll bring it on my way. At some point, I figured there would be some backlash over the money I was spending. I even found out the max I was allowed to tip and was maxing it out every time to give out more money to the waitresses. I was wrong. The plant cycled up again, and I think my managers believed those new orders came from the money I was spending, and not just typical ebbs and flows of auto manufacturing. Eventually, I left the industry, and these guys moved on to other jobs. We had a blast on the company dime while it lasted. So it sounds like what you're saying is that you took Bill and Ted on an excellent adventure for a few months? Oh my. Now I've got to mention that OP said in the comments down below that they absolutely did tell Bill and Ted about the background of what they were doing. So he says, yep, word for word. Hey guys, they think me taking you to dinner will get more orders in. They refuse to listen to me that this company doesn't work this way. So let's go spend some money. OP says that initially Bill and Ted put up a bit of an argument because they didn't want to waste the company's money, but he convinced them that if they didn't let him take them, that he was going to look bad to his own bosses, and so they relented and had a great time. Check out all 3 LPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.